Thacher Island is a remnant of the last ice age. It has stood 2 miles off the coast of Cape Ann for the last 30,000 years. Champlain and Captain John Smith were two early explorers of Thacher Island. Thacher was given its name as a result of a tragic shipwreck in 1635, the loss of the vessel, the Watch and Wait, out of Ipswich, was the earliest known shipwreck to occur along the New England shoreline. Several months following the shipwreck, the compassionate Massachusetts General Court gave the island to one of the survivors, Anthony Thacher. It has been known as Thacher Island ever since. Thacher Island, ownership unclear at this point, is in the province of the town of Rockport. Before the lighthouses were built and maintained, the women of Cape Ann would light great fires on the island to help steer their fishermen husbands back home. Thacher Island is visited by many scuba divers during the season because of its varied underwater terrain and abundant sea life. The island is unique, being that it has 2 lighthouses, each standing 124 feet above sea level. When both were operating, they served for inbound ships to differentiate Thacher Island and Cape Ann from the more northerly coasts of New Hampshire and Maine. Power to Thacher Island comes from the mainland through an underwater cable that starts out from Loblolly Cove. There's a relaxed air aboard Easy Diver. New charter members are very quickly absorbed by the boat's population. We become part of the family, enjoying vacations together as well as social gatherings. Divers' dress ranges from new dry suits to veteran wetsuits with all manner of patched, glued, taped, and sewn holes going against the elements. Single 70s or 80s are the preferred cylinder, offering reasonable dive time against the cool chill of Cape Ann's waters. Many professional divers who crew and charter Easy Diver use force fins, a fin which has proven itself on SEAL teams, instructor training courses, and deep recreational Caribbean diving. Force fins are the staple fin on Easy Diver. Although everyone doesn't always agree with the captain, no one has yet walked the plank or been left to scrape out an exiled existence on the island. By and large, the customers are very much like the crew, very capable and safe divers. Essentially a big rock, Thacher's terrain and shoreline features continue down below the waterline, providing a spectacular jumble of huge rocks, great boulders, canyons, cliffs, and drop-offs. Where the granite meets the ocean bottom's flat and sandy plain, the stage has been set for the growth of numerous sea life forms. Sea lettuce is green, its vivid color evidence of the presence of chlorophyll. Brown kelps, the most obvious of the seaweeds, can reach great lengths. Sponge seaweed, codium, is also a green alga. Tubularian hydroid resembles many pink flowers. This vertical shot is a hidden flounder that doesn't become obvious until he begins to move over this field of sand dollars. He prefers to be someplace else, and we have a belly shot coming up that shows him making his way out of the area, and a patient crab waiting his turn begins to cross the plain. Because of the gravelly bottom surrounding the island, the in-water visibility tends to be clearer than at other places. This accounts for the returning traffic of boatloads of enthusiasts. The boulders, quite out of proportion in size to anything else typically found along the coast, rode down from the north on the back of the glacier and settled on the bottom when the ice finally melted. Without that description, the boulders would seem terribly out of place where they're found. They are not called anemones, and they are not called anemones. They're called anemones. Anemones are in the same group as corals and jellyfishes. Anemones are invertebrates. They have no skeleton. Anemones are visually appealing. For exploring scuba divers around Thacher Island, the unique anemone form would be hard to miss. The animals are very often surrounded by brothers, sisters, and cousins, all living solitary lives. Their classic form is that of an extended column-like body with a single foot disc for attaching to rocks. Some anemones live with their bodies totally exposed, while others bury themselves in the sand of the ocean bottom. Sea stars, what we call starfish when we were kids, are abundant around Thacher Island. The blood star will reach 8 inches in diameter. The northern star and Forbes star are the two most common sea stars. When fully grown, the northern starfish is the larger of the two, reaching 16 inches in diameter. Forbes stretches the tape at only 10 inches in diameter. Thacher Island is still the rendezvous place for huge schools of migrating fish. Migrations that attract predators and curious scuba divers. Though rarely used as food, menhadens are an important commercial fish. Their oil is used in the chemical industries. They are a common migrating fish, moving south during the fall and swarming back in the spring. As you can see, they swim very close to the surface. Seagulls, hovering above the school, herald their return. The seagulls eat them. Nicknamed moss bunker, menhaden is a Narragansett Algonquin Indian word. Lobstering is still the favorite pastime of half the people who scuba dive here. Lobstering at Thacher Island is fantastic. You don't have to go deep. Armed with poker, bag, and gauge, a scrounging scuba can fill her net in no time. Running on just Saturdays, Sundays, and holidays, we still landed over 400 lobsters last season. Sometimes the lobsters are fresh boiled on the boat for the customers. Other times they're spirited home. Lobstering isn't necessarily easier around Thacher Island as much as it's just better here. Lobsters inhabit the holes created by the boulders, or they dig their own holes. They sit in waiting, hoping for a meal to cross their threshold, or they flirt with disaster by groping at the bait in lobster traps. We were curious as to the time it would take for a lobster to do himself in. Most lobsters are content to lurk, but a few adventurous ones can't resist the temptation of what might appear to be free food, but which in fact is the Last Supper. Lobster traps, often called pots, have been of the same design for many generations, literally. We are looking through the escape hole through which illegal-sized lobsters could get away. The recently trapped lobster in this pot is too big for his own britches. The common rockfish of Thacher Island make their homes around the boulders. Initially skittish when approached, they fast become accustomed to a scuba diver's presence, and their curiosity will bring them out in the open. Crabs are invertebrates. They are part of the most familiar of the arthropods. Alongside lobsters, class Crustacea, arthropods is a Greek word, means jointed foot. An arthropod's most distinguishing feature is its armor-like exoskeleton. Here is a curious sand-dwelling crab looking over the top of his dune, sort of like Lawrence of Thacher Island, eh? A crab's armor prevents regular growth. So, periodically, crabs, like lobsters, must shed their shells in molts, and then secrete the substance that will harden into yet another suit of armor. Quite vulnerable while this shedding and hardening is taking place, the crab must hide. The most common crabs inhabiting the waters around Thacher Island are the Jonah crab and the Atlantic rock crab. Jonah crabs have somewhat elliptical shaped bodies, while the Atlantic rock crab's body is more triangular in shape. Little ones get out of the way of big ones. Here we have a crab enjoying what looks like sand spaghetti. In an excavated hole, a crab will gorge himself for hours. The Jonah crab's upper side is a granular, dull, rosy color, sometimes nearly brick red. Their pincers are black-tipped, as their walking legs. Jonah crabs can be easily handled. The Atlantic rock crab's topside is mottled with purplish-reddish spots. Its pincers are black-tipped, while its legs are somewhat hairy. The ugly raven fish. Either they survive because they're well camouflaged, or they taste like they look and are avoided. Some videographers think they're interesting to look at. The "I'm cold" signal usually ends any dive. Thacher's is an easy dive. You may get too far from the boat, but you're never too far from shore. Its waters tending to be deeper closer to shore, the northern end of the island is more often visited by scuba divers. Being 2 miles offshore, the island often benefits from its leeward position. If you can get there, it's generally calm. The contrasting features of the sloping bottom around Thacher Island provides a wonderful background for in-water still photographers and movie makers.